Hi everyone. I hope you all are doing well and taking it day by day, which is about all we can ask of ourselves right now. Today I'd like to talk in a little bit more depth about why we are having some of the reactions we're having, why we're doing some of the things we're doing from a brain science standpoint, because I think some understanding of that will help us be a little bit more forgiving of ourselves and a little bit more flexible. So we're going to start off with my picture here. The first thing I'd like to point out is that many of our responses are coming from the part of the brain called the amygdala. This is in the limbic system, which is primitive, it is survival based, it scans the environment for threats, and it's basically in charge of our emotional responses. So when something scares us, like a pandemic or something scary in the environment, it's our limbic system that is triggered, and it releases that fight or flight response, that strong emotional response we have. The other part of the brain that's important here is right in the front of our brain, the frontal lobe, the prefrontal cortex in particular, and this is in charge of our planning, our problem solving, our higher order human kind of responses. The prefrontal cortex tries to make sense of the information coming in from the limbic system. And then it's also assisted here by the hippocampus, which stores long-term emotional kinds of memories. So what happens when we're in a situation like we are now with a pandemic? We get afraid, we hear the news that's very scary, and we're having trouble doing anything else. We may be preoccupied by anxiety, we may be going out and doing irrational things like buying toilet paper, and the reason is because that limbic system essentially hijacks the prefrontal cortex. It throws the prefrontal cortex offline so that the only way you're able to respond is from the emotional center, which is the limbic system. And just to give you an example of just a personal situation of how this worked, a couple of weeks ago when my university announced that we were taking all our classes online, I've never taught online before, and I have 4 or 5 classes, and I had to take them all online in a matter of days. For the first couple of days, I was completely paralyzed. I couldn't do anything but stare at my computer and think, how am I going to do this? How in the world am I going to do this? But after a couple of days of training and a couple of days of just fiddling around with things, I started to calm down, get used to things, and it's much better now. So a lot of you may have had similar kinds of responses, and there are really 2 things that help to put that prefrontal cortex back online and kind of calm that limbic system down. The first one is just having an awareness that that's what's happening. So if you are really preoccupied with anxiety and fear, it helps to tell yourself that this is exactly what's happening, that prefrontal cortex is not functioning well, and just that awareness can really go a long way. And the second thing is the deep breathing that I talked about a couple of days ago. Deep breathing, which comes from the central core of the brain. This is the part of our brain that keeps our digestive system going, our respiration going. It's always working. So the deep breathing helps to put the frontal cortex back online and help us to start thinking rationally and making plans again. So those are 2 things that can help put that back into place and help us feel better. So thanks for watching, and I will be back tomorrow.